Daria Lamb, I invite you to come up here. And for those of you who are our guests, it's our practice to just occasionally have people share their own personal spiritual journey, to tell us of their own faith trek with God. And so, Daria, thank you for opening your life to us today.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to share my story of how I came to faith and its role in my life. And I pray that this will be a blessing for those who are listening. So I grew up in a Long Island family that were Catholics of medium commitment. That means we were all baptized as infants. We made our first Holy Communion. We often went to church, not just on Easter Sunday. I especially liked it when after church we were allowed to go to the newspaper store and pick out a new comic book. In my recollection, we went more in seasons when my mother was focused on our family than in her personal interests. I don't know if there was a pattern. And even though I went through years of Sunday school and helped teach at Vacation Bible School, I have to say I never saw a Bible. I never saw a Bible out anywhere. And I thought of it like biographies. I had read as a kid those little kid versions of Zacchaeus and Noah, and that was really all I knew. Now, I know that my mother believed in God, and I know that she engaged with the church with intention and honor, but it never seemed to have any more personal impact on me than going to Girl Scouts. So through God's grace, all this changed the summer that I was 13. In June of that year, my family moved to the village of Stony Brook, and my mother, knowing I had no friends or activities, signed me up for the summer programs at the Stony Brook School. And at the end of the summer, literally the last week of camp, a faculty member suggested maybe I should be going to school there. And suddenly, I found myself a student at the Stony Brook School. If you're not familiar with Stony Brook, it's a 100-year-old Christian prep school known for its outstanding academics, but even known more for its motto, character before career. So they shape not only scholars, but young men and women whose lives and characters are shaped out of a personal relationship with Jesus. So, Stony Brook has daily chapel, where faculty and students stand up and share what's important to their lives, how Christ plays a role in their lives, the parts of the Bible that mean a lot to them. And within a few months, I began to recognize a pattern that these people seemed happier to have given up control over their life to Jesus. I can vividly recall around December of my sophomore year, sitting with my back pushed hard against the pew and thinking, okay, God, I guess I can try this just for today. Maybe for a little while, and I'll see if it works for me too. In one sense, I was tentative. But on the other hand, I was absolutely serious in my 14-year-old surrender to Jesus Christ. I dove in, went to Bible studies and student-led chapel to the point where my parents sometimes teasingly called me the missionary. I don't think they understand my take on Christianity at the time. They didn't see how it was different from theirs, and I was too young to describe it. But consciously and unconsciously, Jesus had become my Lord, and I was building a personal relationship with him. So that was the start of my faith life. It took a big step forward a little later when I was introduced to a beautiful ministry called Focus, which is the Fellowship of Christians in universities and schools. It's a ministry like Young Life or Youth for Christ or our own wonderful youth group here. It's intent on helping students consciously live their lives with Christ at the center. At Focus, they have a lovely study center that was given to them on Martha's Vineyard, where I started as a student and continued as a volunteer. And over the years, I learned a few important things there that really shaped me. The first was that I could have a personal relationship with Jesus and still be me. Me interested in building a career in business, me interested in living in Brooklyn and traveling the world. I also learned that God gave me resources to answer those hard questions that I was asking, like any young person growing into an adult. Resources like reading the Bible, prayer, and wise Christians around me. And I learned that reading the Bible daily, even if it's just a verse delivered by an app, it was critical to staying close and growing closer to God. Our families continue to volunteer with Focus for over 2 decades, and I continue to grow every time I'm there, even as I give back to them. And it's marvelous to see young people learning to live in Christian community and choose to intentionally grow in the Lord. I want to share with you one other story of how God shaped me. In late 2009, we moved to Manhattan, and within weeks, the Bear Stearns financial crisis hit, and I lost my job. We were living in an apartment where the bathrooms just never felt clean to me, and I complained about this inwardly and probably outwardly, and wished we could afford a professional cleaner to polish it up. At that time, a preacher named Charlie Drew, some of you know him. In fact, Pastor John tells me that Charlie preached here at Pastor John's installation. Well, Charlie preached a sermon about being obviously obedient to the Lord. So, I was unemployed, living in an apartment that I didn't really like. And you know what? It's just a little thing. But I have to tell you, it was as though God said to me, stop complaining, find gratitude and strength in me. And so, I spent a day scrubbing those tiles on my hands and knees the whole day. Our then 11-year-old daughter came in after watching this for hours and asked me what I was doing. And I turned to her and I told her, I'm being obviously obedient. She, of course, kind of shrugged her shoulders and walked out of the room. But some of you know what I'm talking about, that radical, obvious obedience to a Savior who died and rose again, a Savior who wants me to put my hope in heaven and not in things here on earth. And that's a lesson that I'm still learning every day. I have many other faith stories to tell you, and I'd be honored to speak with any of you who'd like to hear more about the grace of God in my life. I'm delighted to be a part of this church and this beautiful, diverse community that puts Jesus and the Bible at their center of their lives. Thank you.